The Hemingway techniques. Alright, let's see.
You've probably heard bits of writing advice from Hemingway over the years, but most writers haven't heard what I'm going to tell you in this video. To put together these 9 surprising steps, I read every interview and every collected letter and every non-fiction book that Hemingway ever wrote. Trust me, it took a while. And then I boiled it down to the most important steps that he talks about, from the beginning to the middle and then finally the end in revision. First, these are the 3 things that Hemingway says every writer needs. These are the basic things you need before you even start writing. First, Hemingway says that you need a moral compass, a strong sense of justice and injustice. A writer without a sense of justice and injustice would be...
Hold on. Moral compass. This shit goes too fast, man. Sense of justice, injustice. When I say slurs online, I'm actually engaging in activism against U.S. cultural imperialism. Truly,
justice and injustice. A writer without a sense of justice and injustice would be better off editing a school's yearbook than writing novels. Dude,
you don't have any
sick burn
ideas.
against yearbook creators, Hemingway. But why did he say this? Because if you don't have a strong sense of justice and injustice, you're not going to be writing very strongly in favor of things, or be writing with a type of anger that fuels good prose against injustice. And this could be on the personal scale, the micro level, like someone does an injustice toward you, or also could be on the macro scale, talking about big political movements or injustice in the world at large. Hemingway said that what made Dostoevsky great was that he got unjustly sent to a Siberian concentration camp. Dostoevsky was just a member of a group that was considered subversive by the Russians, and all of a sudden he got packed off to Siberia. But that sense of injustice powered all of his writing, and without it, we wouldn't have ended up with books like Crime and Punishment or Brothers Karamazov. 2, Hemingway says that all writers need early trauma. In a letter to Fitzgerald, he said, you have to be hurt like hell before you can write seriously. Because the writer is someone who takes that entry and uses writing.
Well, good thing I'm an extremely emotional person. If you want better stories, you have to commit injustice against writers. I don't know. Do you guys feel that my book has, like, these kinds of, like, more... But I mean, like, my entire writing revolves around these kinds of deep, like, human, like, universal moral dilemmas and experiences that people have. Like, that's kind of where I draw my inspiration of writing from, is from the real world. So...
writing as a way to rectify the wrong, fictionally, or as therapy to try to process that trauma. I mean, you've probably heard this saying that there are no writers with happy childhoods. And that's what Hemingway's getting at here. 3, a crap detector. Hemingway said all great writers have this. The most essential gift for a...
I don't feel like the monarch is a stand-in for a particular real injustice. He's not, Levi. It's the fanatics. It's the people inside of the tree that are liars, cheaters, and scammers that are convincing people of a certain agenda and pointing them in a certain direction, knowing that events will happen in a certain way. All they need is to place the perspective in the correct direction for enough people, and they get their way. So it's more of the people themselves or the injustice against the Adventurers Guild. And the monarch is just the facilitator of that, right? So I think it's more of the public, like the people that are like for instance, if there were any other murders other than the death of Zaid, they would be family members of adventurers. People who had never left the tree, but their kids decided to. And if those people were somehow, like, massacred in some sort of purge inside of the tree, do you think that would add some element of injustice if there was none before? Because that could totally easily be done. Nothing is set in stone.
A good writer is a built-in, shock-proof crap detector. That's the PG version of the quote. What that detector does is it lets you know when what you're writing isn't up to snuff. It also tells you what is working in your manuscript
and that's literally why I wrote chapter 1 and I was like, yeah, no, this is shit. Fuck this. Back to the drawing board, boys. Back to the fucking drawing board.
what isn't working so you can revise better. That detector gives you objectivity, so you know what's true on the page
And
and
we're
what's false on the
building
page.
that
And probably
with
the
these
most important thing
reacts.
that a detector does is it allows you to know where to revise and what you need to delete. If you are always in love with your own writing, it's probably a good sign that you haven't built up this detector. Hemingway's second step in writing a book is to pick your subject. And he's gone ahead and identified the 3 main topics that writers should write about. The first,
I need a better internal map of the story to tell if something particular would help for the overall story. I mean, it would be another what if you are never happy with your work, even if it's good? That's a good thing, book buyer, as long as you know, like, the point at which it's like, how do you say this? Like, it's like a hard cap, right? Like, you'll start down here, and let's say this takes from getting from here to here takes like 90% of your energy. And then getting from here to there takes the next 10%. So it's like, at some point in time, you're going to plateau on how much you can actually improve, and knowing where that plateau is and how you like move that plateau with like increasing your writing skills, then that's the thing, Sean, is you need to find your own personal plateau point in your writing when you notice that, yeah, I could fix a word out of every, let's say, 9 words, and then you can fix a word out of every 27 words. So by the time you only need to fix 1 word out of every 50 words, it's like you're starting to hit a plateau where it's not, you know, it's the amount of investment that you do is not going to be worth the rewards. So it's more over just a internal personal passive writing over time to then basically increase your cap again, because you'll like unlock something in your head and it'll be like, oh, I've never thought about doing this, and this, and then you just redirect the entire way that you write. Callie, welcome to Talks. I must share. All right, Callie, share away. But yeah, you have to decide where that plateau point is for yourself, and then just accept it as good enough. I wish I was like Pierce Anthony. He writes the books he sells instead of selling the books he writes. Red Say Lee! Hi, pussy! How's it going, Red? How are you, good sir? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're enjoying.
The subject he identified is war. War is the best.
War! I mean, we do have war in our book, and there are many different wars in the book.
Subject of all, he wrote. I mean, this makes sense with his history as an ambulance driver in World War I. He saw firsthand all the tragedy that goes into war, and so he knew that makes for good storytelling. He said that war gives you the maximum amount of material in the minimal amount of space. Now, for most of you, you probably aren't writing about a war, but I think this advice still applies to you. What you
and we're writing like the very first event of the book is the event that when you notice that the war didn't just start. The war started the day that they entered the 100-Year Quest. Torg's group, Atharg's group, Husai's previous adventuring group. And I was wondering, was just sorting out OBS, and then I hear, hi, pussy, and I instantly came back. True, Muffin. True.
Looking for in your fiction is life and death stakes. A war in your book means something that will kill your character, either literally or figuratively, if they don't accomplish what they're going for. Hemingway's second subject is love. Love is also a good subject, as you might said to have discovered. Remember Fitzgerald?
The power of friendship!
This is a man who knows about love stories. But Hemingway also knew about love. This is a man with 4 wives, and
it's like a universal love. It's the love that Gaia has for her children. Because how consciousness works with spreading other species is you take a tiny seed of your consciousness and you place it into something, and then that sprouts into a greater consciousness and spreads even more consciousness. So even from a single seed of your own consciousness, you can create entire spans of life. So those are extremely precious to you because they're pieces of you. And they've grown on their own individually apart from you. So the love that Gaia shares is universal through consciousness, like the love of a mother to a child. It's innate to nature. It is what instinct is in my book. It's the influence from Gaia is instinct, and it can only be on that level because otherwise it would, if characters didn't believe it was of their own creation, then it would basically break them.
Madly fell in love with...
Four Wives is actually pretty good. Sign you don't know very much about love. Well, all I know is there's a lot of different kinds of love.
Each one. Hemingway also frequently talked about how lovemaking informed his storytelling. Oh, you cat.
Like the relationship between Husai and Hildebrandt. Like how they go from basically like she's nonchalant / almost kind of negative about him because she critiques him in her thoughts, essentially. But that's because she has a completely different view of who he is, because she doesn't know who he is. They've literally just met. But as they go through everything and she sees him like expressing himself and then finally asks her the questions, she breaks down and is like, oh my god, I've never looked at something from this perspective before. I'm still trying to sort out this mic shit. It sounds weird. Do I really have to get a separate mic? Cute Muffin, usually yes, because it's usually really shitty laptop mic. Good morning, Eddie. How are you doing, good sir? Welcome, welcome.
Casanova. But when you think about it, it is rare to find a book without some kind of romantic element. Love is foundational to storytelling. And nearly every book of Hemingway's had a romance.
And, like, there is an extreme romance between, the Viceroy, like the newly inaugurated Viceroy, not the Viceroy that's traveling with the main characters, but the one who's pressing for basically Beastman's sympathy and the one who's fucking up everything in the tree. It's because he's basically head over heels in love with the chick who got voted in as his concubine, and she's fucking manipulating everything behind the scenes, kind of fucking up the entire Monarch line. And the Monarch's just standing there like, how far am I going to let him go? I mean, the other Viceroy's gone. I could let him fuck some shit up for a bit. This could be interesting. Alright, let's push some buttons. And like I said, like, I'm pretty sure the Monarch is going to be in the background, like basically supporting the terrorist groups. just to spice things up and stir people up inside of the tree. And then there's one more idea that I don't know if I told you guys about, but I was thinking about, is that, you know how, like, there's the ceremony to basically euthanize old people when they've gotten to a point where their minds have basically worn out, and it's basically like having Alzheimer's. It's like eventually everyone gets to this state where your mind just goes, right? So it's like, they have, and since you can't die inside of the tree from natural causes, they have a euthanasia ceremony that they do. And I'm wondering if this should be like some conspiracy theory level background shit where the Monarch isn't actually like in Midsommar. Not quite sure, Levi, what that's referring to. Don't quite get the reference. Remember, I'm retarded. But if you... How do you say this? Ceremony where they kill the oldies. Okay, yeah. Basically, they're senile, they're done, their brains are gone, their eyes have lost their light, they're basically husks. And people think that they killed them. Where'd Callie go? I thought he had big news. Same here, but he might have posted it in the Discord. I don't have the Discord open. Because I'm retarded. What? You didn't say anything, did you, Callie? I don't see anything here. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, you probably posted something in Discord. Indeed, he did post something. It's 300 words. All right, well, we'll read it. We'll read it after we finish the react. Spent 3 hours planning. Nice. Oh, I bet it's gonna be good, Callie. But anyways, so the monarch doesn't actually kill them. He just, like, leaves them inside of the tree. So all of the people that have ever lived inside of the tree are in, like, some sort of, like, chamber area where he keeps everyone. And this is Anima's, like, new plan for how to have, like, insane amount of life. And I'm thinking about this entire arc of, like, evolving Anima's plan. And now it encompassing creating his own trees and infecting worlds with these trees of the shards of his consciousness and having them store all of the bodies and souls of the people over the ages. So when he goes to eat, he gets everything. But then I'm thinking, well, does this really matter, right? Because let's step back and let's ask, does this really matter? And this is how you know if the idea is good or not. Well, the physical body isn't what Anima's eating, it's his soul. It's the soul. So, technically, actually what Anima wants is... This is probably the reason why the age is the way that it is. It's that medium point between you live too short that you don't gain enough knowledge to build your consciousness to make it a worthy snack. Like I said, you need like a tiniest seed of consciousness in order to create beings. When beings die, their consciousness returns to Gaia. So essentially by creating more life on the planet over time, it's increasing Gaia's soul. And Gaia's soul is what Anima eats in order to gain energy. So, you want souls that last long enough in order to hit that maximum plateau point of growth, which is about the age that the beings in my book are. Too old, and it's like, well, you've got like 100 years wasted because they can't gain that much in that amount of time, right? So he's, like, literally calculated out all this shit, and it's all happened because the monarch pulled the moon out of the sky. And Gaia, or, like, Anima never even thought that something like this was possible. He's like, oh shit, really? Okay, well, boom, maybe I can make... And then maybe, now that leads to the question of, I've always wanted to have some element in the second book, because the second book always felt a little dry, was having, like, things that were infected by Anima's, like, grasp. Which would be, like, things that were infected by his shard. Which is what Gaia was trying to protect people from, which infected the monarch in the first place. And having, like, monsters and stuff, and then going and finding that, like, you know, how on the other side of the world, basically, where there's no continent, it's rumored that there are thousands of ships docked together, and it's like a pirate continent island of thousands, if not tens of thousands of ships, all docked together to create this insane community, basically. And the idea of it is it's like, I can never remember the name of it. The pirate place. It starts with a T. Why can I never remember? No, I mean like you know, it was like the pirate like hangout like dock place back in the day. I swear it starts with a T. Tunguska? Is that what it is? Tunguska? Tortuga! Yes, Sean, Tortuga. That's what it is. It's kind of like the idea of Tortuga. for pirates and people that have been, had their license taken away, or they're hiding away, or, basically for, like, people that are on the underside of the law. And coming out of the ocean on the other side is a tree that's opposite the crystalline tree, and it's the shards of anima.
Sparrow.
True, Sean. True. But yeah, so I'm just still debating the idea of having that in the second book to make the second book, like, more potent.
Let's think about To Have and Have Not, think about Farewell to Arms.
True, Smokey, agreed,
Really
good
everything
sir.
but Old Man in the Sea. For your book, you should think about romantic love, absolutely, yes, but you should also think about other types of love. Romances, like friendship love, sibling love. I've been reading Michel Houellebecq, and most of his books are concerned with the love two brothers have for one another. Filial love, right? Love for parents. And don't forget love for pets either. You can have an extremely strong love for your pet. Right, Roxy? Roxy? She's sleeping. The third major subject that Hemingway identified was money. Other major subjects are the money, from which we get riches and poors. In Hemingway's books, he's usually writing about people without money, people living hardscrabble lives, people just scraping by, like characters in To Have and To Have Not. But an abundance of money can provide just as interesting a subject. Think of the massive wealth inside that limo in Don DeLillo's Cosmopolis, or the novel trilogy Crazy Rich Asians. Think of the
Smokey, yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did. Don't watch other streams. Hey, you, don't watch other streams. What are you doing? He told you, don't watch other streams. Oh, man. So good. So fucking good. I was on another stream and I loved it. Yeah, I'm so excited for this season, man. It's gonna be so good. I was on another stream and somehow mentioned how I'd love an X-rated Swiss Family Robinson type movie, an actual movie, but realistic in terms of damage to clothes and adult-natured activities, as well as blood and gore, when realistic. Well, there you go, Sean. There's nothing wrong with that. Just take it and combine it with Game of Thrones. Boom, Game of Throneify it. Easy.
absurdity of wealth in Downton Abbey and then how that's contrasted with the lack of wealth down below. Or how jealousy for wealth is what drives murder in The Talented Mr. Ripley. Money divides characters and provides something for characters to strive for. And a lot of money allows the reader to live vicariously and have fun because they get to experience what these rich characters are experiencing. Okay, so
worst
now
ending
you have
ever.
the foundational things that you need to be a writer. Now you have chosen your subject, and now it's time for step number 3, the one way to start writing. What advice does Hemingway give about starting the writing process? One time, Hemingway got stuck while writing a story in Paris. He couldn't figure it out, he had major writer's block. So he sat in front of a fire, he peeled an orange and started throwing those peels in the fire. He looked out over the roofs of Paris and began to give himself a pep talk. He said, listen, you've always written before, and you're gonna write again. And then he said this, all you have to do is write one true sentence. Write the truest sentence that you know. So he took this impossibly big task of writing a novel and boiled it down to this very manageable step of writing a single sentence. One sentence, only one sentence. Anybody can write one sentence, right? But the question is, what is a true sentence? One, it's something without art.
I'm gonna say, like, I don't know, I came up with it really quickly, but for the intro, like, what do you guys think of or what was it? Not every battle is a challenge. Simple, direct, vague. You know that something that's supposed to happen it's like, I was like, the best is yet to come. And I was like, well, what's the difference between this and... I think this one's just too direct. Even though it completely contrasts the entirety of it. But this is also contrasting the very last sentence of the book as well. But I don't know.
artifice or fakery. It's a relatively plain sentence. You're not trying to fool anybody with this sentence. 2, it's something that you know about. This is absolutely key because the reader's gonna know if you are pretending to have knowledge that you don't really have. And 3, a true sentence is something that is just brimming with the vitality of life. Stuff between characters or the beauty of the natural world, something that is celebrating life. Ultimately, Hemingway thought that if you can write one true sentence, then you can write a whole book. So you start with a cornerstone of that one true sentence and build from there. And if you want to learn more about this, there's actually a fantastic book called One True Sentence, Writers and Readers on Hemingway's Art. Basically, each essay talks about a single...
Oh, it talks. Be the Music is a reader magnet now. I'm offering it in exchange for email addresses, basically. Callie. Oh, Smokey. Thank you, good sir. Sit back and enjoy. You know you wanna. But yeah, it's like... So let's just... I guess I got rid of it. But if you look at that sentence, it's like, that's the beginnings, right? If the very first sentence, the very first thing you write down is something like that, it's like, how can you transform that into something extremely powerful? You have a very strong base, but you can expand on that, right? So I wonder what that sentence would look like in a year. Why you laugh and say my name? Because I thought it was funny the way that you said that, Callie. It's hilarious. I love that kind of humor.
Single sentence of Hemingway, breaking it down and explaining why it's incredible. Hemingway's 4th step in writing a book is the essential way to write characters. You really can't write a book about characters, and so it's not surprising that Hemingway ended up giving a lot of advice on how to create a good character. I've taken all that advice and tried to boil it down to the ones he repeated multiple times, and what I think is the most important advice that he gave.
But I'm not funny. True, Callie. That's what makes it funny.
1, no perfect characters. In a letter to John Dos Passos, he says, don't let yourself slip and get any perfect characters in. He actually says that this is the only mistake that can ruin a great piece of literature. Characters always need faults so that the reader feels like they're believable. He said that when characters don't have any faults, they stop being people and they start to be something more like a symbol. And plus, perfect characters are kind of boring and also unrelatable. We put them up on this pedestal and we think, oh wow, they're so great, but it's very difficult for us to see ourselves in their struggle.
I can't help it, Callie. It's too much fun.
Hemingway's 2nd piece of advice about characters is don't write characters. In Death in the Afternoon, he said, when writing a novel, a writer should create living people, not characters. I love that. If you try to set out to write a character, you're going to end up writing a character, meaning like a fake person in a book. His goal is always to write.
Yeah, that's why it's like, I literally don't even have that much down about my characters, but like, I know the foundation and the basis of the characters. As in, like, where I pulled the idea of that character and what that character's, like, a main drive and, like, subsequent, like, sub-personalities that fall under that cat, or, like, structures that fall underneath the category of whatever it is, you know? One's eccentric, one's shy, one's a crybaby, one's overconfident, right? And it's like, it's very, 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 very basic, but it's like that part of me, the part of me that's majorly connected to each of those plays a huge role. My mom. Your mom and me, Callie, she loves that 18-inch. Makes me raw. But she's a good mommy-dommy, don't worry.
people.
She treats
You were
me
not
well.
trying to create a fake person. You were trying to create a real one. His real trick was how he made them come alive, and he identified 3 things. He said that you have to have knowledge of a person. You have to write about that person with your head, thinking very critically about their motivations and their psychology. And 3, you have to write with your heart. What do you feel for this person? And Hemingway's third step to writing about characters, people, is to base them on real people. Now, of all the advice that Hemingway gave on writing characters, this is actually the topic that he talked about most. He almost always based his characters on people that he knew. That's how he made them come alive. Sometimes he used their real names, but most of the time he gave them a fake name and then just based it on their personality. There's this huge advantage to using real people as inspiration for your characters, is that you have to do less work to make them feel like they're coming alive. You have such a depth of knowledge that it's very easy to transfer that to your character. But I will say this strategy got Hemingway in trouble. One of the characters in The Sun Also Rises was based upon a real person, and this person confronted Hemingway and said, "Why did you make me cry so much in that book?" And Hemingway's response was hilarious. He said, "Well, you do cry an awful lot for a man, and if you have a problem with it, I'll box you." I mean, come on, you gotta admit, that is the most Hemingway-esque answer ever. But after that point, he actually did feel bad about that. And so he didn't stop basing his characters on real people, but what he did is he tried to change them a little bit more so the real people wouldn't be so offended. Hemingway's 5th step in writing a book is to start observing details. So details weren't just details to Hemingway. They were foundational to how he conceived of making a book come alive. Here's what he says the problem is with most writers. Most people never listen, nor do they observe. He said that as a writer, if you don't practice very careful listening and observing, you're going to dry up. You're going to run out of material because you're not filling yourself with the wonderfulness that is in this world. And he also said that any writer, when they
never write alone, always write together. Think tanks exist for a reason. Don't be afraid to share your ideas. There's no such thing as stealing an idea.
they walk out of a room, they should remember the details of that room and what made them feel something in that room and the details of the characters in that room. In Death in the Afternoon, which is about bullfighting in Spain, he talks about a matador getting up after being gored by a bull. And I love the details here. He focuses on the dirtiness of his face, the dirtiness of his breeches, and the dirtiness of his underwear. But then the end of the sentence is noticing the unbearable cleanliness of the white thigh bone where the bull had gored him. I love the contrast between cleanliness and dirtiness and the detail of noticing the color of the bone. Another great detail of Hemingway's is he has this scene in A Farewell to Arms where soldiers are being bombed while eating. And so this man gets up and runs with a whole hunk of cheese. And when he sits down again, thankfully alive, the bombs did not kill him, he notices the cheese is covered with brick dust. The bombs pulverized his brick and it covered his cheese with this reddish dust. If you don't think that you're good at details yet, Hemingway suggests this exercise to help you get better. He says, when you're in town, stand outside the theater and see how the people differ in the way they get out of taxis or motor cars. Notice the small things. Notice how their bodies move and unfold. Notice their pace. Notice their little gestures. If you're a careful observer in that, it will train you to be a more careful observer in other parts of your life. Hemingway's sixth step to write a book is simplicity. The danger with this writing advice, and really the danger of all writing advice, is you take it all and you dump all this stuff into the book and then it's just this huge mess. There's a dozen storylines and 100 characters and the reader honestly can't make sense of any of it. And that's why this step is absolutely crucial. Hemingway was a master at simplicity. He took super complex ideas and characters and boiled it down to the neatest, sparest of language. This is the prose that I've been working for all my life, that should read easily and simply and seem short and yet have all the dimensions of the visible world. I think it's important to note that simplicity does not mean simple. It means compacting complex meaning inside simple language.
Yeah.
It's honestly a bit of trickery. All the complexities of the world can fit inside his very simple prose. I've heard about people talk that if you really understand a topic, you can explain it in such simple terms that a 5-year-old could understand it. And Hemingway wrote Old Man in the Sea in language that a 5-year-old could understand. Once Faulkner insulted Hemingway and he said, he has never used a word that might send a reader to the dictionary. And Hemingway sent this zinger back. He said, poor Faulkner, does he think that big emotions come from big words? And here's the exercise for you. Take any newspaper article and try retyping it, focusing on the type of sentences that they're writing. That's going to teach you the type of sentence control and discipline with language that will lead to a Hemingway-esque style. Hemingway's 7th tip to writing a book is write with your body, not with your mind. Hemingway hated authors writers that wrote with their mind. And he even identified some of these guys. He said Emerson, Hawthorne, Whittier. They were all responsible. He meant this as like a supreme insult. And he said no one would ever think they had bodies. They had minds, yes. Nice, dry, clean minds. For Hemingway, good writing always came straight from the body. What does that mean? Well, one, it means writing with a full array of senses. Sound, smell, taste, sight, touch. The way your body interacts with the world is all of these senses. So if you write focusing on those senses, you're really writing with a memory of what your body has experienced. Two, writing from the body means writing from your gut. Use your instinct, man. What do you feel is right in this story? And remember, Hemingway was always very anti-outline. And I think that's because outlines are more of a way of writing with your mind. For him, he wanted to go with sort of gut instinct, and so he just flowed with it. Another distinction is where you start the writing process. If you start with an idea and then create characters and plots to support that idea, that's very much writing with your mind. Writing with your body means you start in a particular place, with a particular person, doing a particular action. It is very scene-based and it's very physical rather than being cerebral. All right, Hemingway has 2 more steps for us, and this one is extremely important. Number 8 is leave things out.
Yes.
We're nearing the end of Hemingway's process for how to write a book, and this is the point where you realize not everything in the world can fit inside your book. It's only a book. It's not the history of the universe. As an editor, this is something that I'm constantly reminding my clients of, is like, listen, this chapter of yours, it's impeccably written. It's wonderful. I couldn't get enough of it. And guess what? It doesn't fit inside this book. For one reason or another, it doesn't connect strongly enough with the plot or with the theme, and even though it's fantastic writing, and I enjoyed reading it, for the sake of the book, you probably shouldn't include it. And if you have ever heard any piece of writing advice from Hemingway, this is probably it. It comes from this quote. If a writer knows enough about what he is writing about, he may omit things that he knows, and the reader will have a feeling of those things as strongly as though the writer had stated them. The dignity of movement of an iceberg is due to only 1/8 of it being above water. A writer who omits things because he does not know them only makes hollow places in his writing. So you've probably heard of Hemingway's famous iceberg advice, right? The little tiny bit of an iceberg above water is the words that are actually in your book. While below the water, invisible and not included in your book, are all the things that you actually know about the book. And Hemingway really practiced this, right? He knows how marlins mate, but he left that out of his book. He talked about how once he saw 50 sperm whales all swimming together and he harpooned one of them, but then he never included that in the book. The point of Hemingway's iceberg is that you have to know an enormous amount about your characters and about your topic. You have to be an absolute expert in the characters, the culture, the place. And after that point, then you can write the book, but you're not going to include all of that in the book. It would be very boring for the reader. Still, the stuff that you do include is going to be so packed with meaning that the reader's going to sense all the things that you didn't include. And pay attention to that last line in the quote about the hollow spaces. If the writer doesn't truly know what he's doing, there's going to be hollow spaces. Like if you write about a welder and have never done welding, the reader's going to be able to tell. Your goal is to over-research, overwrite, and then leave most of it out. Now here's the real trouble. You can't just write the 1/8 of the iceberg above the water. That's what we wish we could do. That would be the most efficient thing, but you can't do it that way. What you do is you write the entire iceberg and then you delete most of it. You think I'm lying to you, but here's an example from Hemingway. For To Have and To Have Not, he deleted 100,000 words from that novel.
About right.
Guess what? The whole book is only 55,000 words. That means he wrote 155,000 words and deleted over 100,000 of them. He threw away more than he kept. So this whole iceberg idea isn't an abstract idea for Hemingway. This is something that he practiced. All right, now it's time for our very last step in Hemingway's guide, how to revise. There's one step that Hemingway said is crucial for revision, and it's something you actually have to do before you start revising. Let it rest. In a letter to his publisher, Charles Scribner,
that's what I'm doing with chapter 1, guys.
How long I have to stay away from it before I can get it to you. Longer I can stay away, it will be better as it gives me a whole new chance to see it cold and plug any gaps and amplify where there is any need. He knew that he couldn't just finish a book and then the next day jump into revising it. He knew that there needed to be a type of distance so he could see it with more objectivity. And when he wrote Farewell to Arms, he was eager to revise it a month later. But instead he said, no, I'm going to wait until I move to Florida and I have a couple months under my belt, and then I'm going to return and revise it. And in A Movable Feast, he said what might be his most famous quote about writing. The only kind of writing is rewriting. And
Yep.
like all Hemingway advice on writing, this isn't something that he just thought abstractly. This was something he really practiced. I want you to take a guess on how many times Hemingway rewrote the ending to A Farewell to Arms. 3 endings? 7 endings? 15 endings? Or even more than that? So go ahead, make a guess in your head.
plus.
How many times do you think he rewrote the ending?
15
All right, you ready
plus.
for the answer? 47 times.
Yep,
47
sounds about right.
distinctly different attempts to write the ending. Some of these endings were really close to being good. Some of them were really terrible, like this one. That is all there is to the story. Catherine died and you will die and I will die and that is all I can promise you. Jeez, Hemingway, really? I think he was having a bad day. But here's your takeaway. If a Nobel Prize winning author, one of the greatest writers of the 20th century, can get it wrong 46 times before finally getting it right, I hope that gives you the courage to keep on